That's mine.
Thank you so much, guys. Hurdling sheep into a corner and killing them all.
Yeah, Crepo is a bit insane.
Yeah.
Let's look at the game instead.
Let's look at the game and then what we'd expected going in if we discount what happened yesterday. G2 should have been the stronger team in this matchup, and they showed it on every field. However, ROCCAT didn't just go down like I was going to say meek sheep. A sheep?
Like sheep?
Again? Or sheep? I don't know. Please talk about the game.
Yeah, well, so the game, we looked at it. Double teleport coming in for G2.
Yeah.
Pushing mid laner, that's always step 1 for them for perks. Jungler who can invade and play aggressive early on, that's always step 2 for G2, so the Lee Sin pick in this case. And it was just such a standard G2 game. Push every lane, especially the mid lane first. Trick can invade, he can make the big plays, and then you 1-3-1 after. It's honestly just a simple game for G2 to win.
Let's take a look at some of the replays, because ROCCAT did try to do something at least, but it doesn't work when G2 is this far ahead and when they're playing the way they are.
So, fight in mid lane, Cabochard. If you play against 1-3-1 with double TP, what is the only thing you can do?
Yeah, like that, they have to fight, but if the mid lane gets caught, then it's really hard, because they basically lose a 4v5, knowing Lissandra is pressuring bot right now. And they just want to scale a bit more, I think. Like, on Ezreal, he doesn't have his items. I don't think he has Muramana yet.
Yeah.
And they're just going to lose mid-tower. They can rotate to bot later on, so it's really bad for them.
And it's, I mean, there's a story, you know, of the game for ROCCAT. When they had a small chance to do something like what the comp wanted to do, it was pure teamfight comp from ROCCAT. You know, Victor, Ezreal, Malphite is just like grouped together, hard engaged teamfight. This disengage away from perks was absolutely beautiful, but this was basically all ROCCAT could do, but they lost the mid laner instantly. So again, something goes wrong, and then what was supposed to be the correct play is not the correct play.
And you look at that where the Bard ultimate was used later on into the fight. They weren't trying to set up any fights or any situations like that a little bit earlier with that Bard ult. Just a comp that had a lot of pieces that should come together that weren't always there. Whether it was that they couldn't or whether it was that the timing just wasn't right, just ROCCAT could never really get it at the right times in that game for themselves.
What do you make of Rumble in the jungle? 0-2 here in Europe so far. Also, in this case for ROCCAT, when you know you might want to be in a position that you have to force fights, and you know that the Rumble, okay, he clears really fast in the beginning, but he can't force the same things.
No, I mean, he's a team fighting pick. And he's team fighting, and then he's like counter ganking. Basically, he's not really looking to duel the enemy jungler too often. That's more like a Nidalee pick in that case. So I think it's okay if you are able to play a bit more passive in the early game and let him farm and get to team fights. But I think that's very difficult to do. I think that's why we also see him lose some of these games, and especially for a team like ROCCAT. I don't think it's the correct pick, because I think you need something that can put Alex on a more aggressive early game jungler, so you can kind of match what Trick is doing.
Yeah, and even more, I think, when they're like, I think all of their lanes were kind of passive and had to scale, like Malphite, Ezreal bot. Even though they have the bot counter pick to Alistar, it's like not enough pressure on the map, and Lee Sin can just do whatever he wants early on. That's why it was really easy for them to set up the TP play bot to just like, we're not gonna let you guys scale, and we're just gonna perma pressure, and at some point, like, you won't do anything to us.
In general, what do you think of Rumble as a pick in the jungle?
I saw it a couple of times. I don't think it's that good, because it's a pick that will need his lanes to be pressuring for him to scale. But on the other hand, if you play against a jungle that's going to pressure and like a lane as well, you're going to lose 2v2, I think, early on. So I don't think it's that good, yeah.
Not convincing. And this one, it didn't work out for ROCCAT. G2 went away with the win, and with just 3 weeks left in the summer split, it's going fast. Things are starting to shake out here in Berlin. There are 3 teams tied in the top spot for now. G2, H2K, and Vitality. The Unicorns of Love are dropping down to 4th, and then there's a gap between the top 6 and the bottom that is growing. Well, there, Vitality still in the #1 spot, and I want to commend you guys on just a fantastic 2 weeks. 4 no-downs for these 2 weeks. Where do you feel things have leveled up the most, that you guys are now into a higher gear?
I think we play, like, we're able not to play only one style. I think we're like really strong in lane swap. We know it's pretty much you have a plan in lane swap to follow, and if A situation happens, then you need to do B, let's say. And we know that's pretty well, so we know to like rotate properly, and then we have like really strong players, I think, on every role, so we're doing good.
Yeah, of course. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I also really like that you're bringing a different style than a lot of the other teams. A lot of different compositions in picks and bans. A lot less simple to predict than some of our other teams that we've seen.
Yeah, of course, you got to be able to run with it. You worked with Sean's over in Gambit as well. How much has that helped, that you knew him before and you knew what he could do, and now he brings it to Vitality?
A lot, I guess, since like I'm with him for like almost 1 year now. I know what he wants to do and what he's like gonna do in the team environment. So I'm happy with what he brings. That's why we're still together.
What kind of coach is he? You know, is he a tough coach? Is he your best friend or something? Like, what kind of coach is Sean's?
In the game environment, he's gonna be strict. I think he's not gonna be the friendly guy, but like outside, yeah, I guess. But we're gonna have like a strict, let's say, pick and ban, and he's gonna do most of that to help us, and then we're just gonna play our game.
Yeah, we'll find out a bit more next week. We'll have Coaches Week, so we'll have a lot of them on the desk.
Great
and
little
we can
plug
talk a lot
there.
about it. Yeah, indeed. Today you guys played for the Unicorns of Love. A question that we kept asking ourselves, and we commended them in the beginning of the year, was, hey, the Unicorns of Love do look different. They have a macro strategy. They have a plan. I feel like it's crumbling a tiny bit, even though they did go 1-1. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Unicorns became their third best team in Europe for a few weeks. But we never really felt like they were the third best team in Europe. And it was almost meant to go wrong in a way. And I think it's wrong to say in that sense. It's kind of harsh to say. But it's not they're stopping the improvement. I think it's just going a little bit slower than what Vitality showed, than what G2, because they came in at such a high level. It's still enough for Unicorns to look better than Origin and Fnatic. So that's the great thing. And they are like a well-deserved fourth-place team right now in Europe. I just don't feel like they are improving as fast as the teams above them. They had some changes, you know, jungle changes in and out, and maybe they just got a good base starting the split. And then now it's been hard for them to kind of build onto it.
You, of course, played with Diamond a lot. Do you think if he was back in the lineup, that would solve a lot of the tiny issues or bigger issues that are coming up now?
I don't know. He's better than Rudy, so I guess you can say that. Like, there is the Nidalee meta kind of, and he was playing it a lot in Gambit, so it may be good for him as well. I can't really say.
Yeah, what they still have, though, is really good individual players. What do you think of Chachi? He's someone that the Fisho really, really likes as a player.
He's good. Chachi's so good.
Yeah, I think he's good indeed. Like, he's going to know when to pressure and when, like, he's going to have to play a tank, let's say, when to, like, come from behind. I think the Ryze nerf hurts him a bit. Like, we banned Poppy, for example, today, and he's mostly playing tanks. Like, they like to put AP top like with a Ryze, and then they go Z mid. I don't think they can do that as much anymore, because Ryze is pretty much dead right now. So we're going to see moving forward or what's going to change.
Who of the top laners in Europe is the best resistant to meta changes, and who is the best to deal with it?
Besides me.
Well, obviously you yourself can be an answer, of course, yeah. And how do you feel that you do when metas change?
I think I do well when meta shifts. Like, we didn't prove that much me playing tanks right now, but it's something we can play, even if... so yeah, I'm looking forward to playoff as well. Like, we see when Kokmo is really, really strong right now, so sometimes you're just gonna have to play the Lulu and have a W and E on AD carry, and that's pretty much what you're gonna do all game, but sometimes you have to play more pressure style with Fiora Graves, sometimes more tanky style, so it's pretty diverse right now indeed.
Yeah, it is. Looking at some other teams, Fnatic, we mentioned them already. Their top laner hasn't been doing that well today. He picked up the Maokai. Of course, we don't know what goes into that decision of a team. But what the story has been for us is that they haven't been able to improve.
No, Fnatic has been a very inconsistent team. And I think it's something you stress also talk very often about.
Yeah, exactly. This Fnatic lineup. Today was the weirdest game for Fnatic overall, because this is a game they should have won. We've spoken time and time again how we've got this clear divide, and they don't just lose to Splice. They got torn apart by Splice. No kills for Fnatic at all in that game, and I'm actually super happy to see Wonderwear have a good game, because I've casted a number of games and said, look, Wonderwear's just not performing. He's not doing well, and we actually saw...
We called him Godware here on the desk.
We actually saw
a good last game. That was a sick last game.
It was a really good game, and it's the same. We saw two players actually step up significantly that we've been saying for a couple of weeks now aren't doing so good. Wonderwear and then Xpepi from Giants. They actually had a good week for both of them. So I'm happy to see the improvements have been made, but... Man, it's just a rough week if you're a Fnatic fan.
To reiterate that, this week, Fnatic... Oh, well, we're going to look at some Giants UL. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, hey, Giants, they picked up a win, so super good for them to get that down the bottom, especially also because Splice is winning, so you gotta follow the other teams there to get out of that relegation zone. But also just with this whole Fnatic talk and Unicorns of Love and so on, I think Fnatic and Unicorns are in somewhat the same boat. In the improvement is very slow. I actually don't even feel like we see that Fnatic improvement always from week to week. Now they've changed support. And where Unicorns came in with better groundwork, that was kind of set. The macro game was working a lot better. Fnatic has been super hit and miss all split long. Are they tough to play against, or is it fairly simple?
I'm not going to say it's simple. I think they played better in scrims because we scrimmed them quite a lot than what they've shown this week. But yeah, they still have a lot of work to do. And if you compare to OL, I think it's easier in current meta to change your support, your jungler, than to change your support. I guess it's still dependent on the players, but most of the time the support is going to guide the jungler more than the opposite. So maybe that's why OL is like still doing better than Fnatic is.
And H2K changed up their mid laner and now got him back. We see some growing pains though there. What did you make of H2K's performance back with Ryu?
I feel like it was the absence of practice for a couple of weeks now for H2K. We're still seeing the shades of what made them good. Yesterday's game against Vitality, that was a nail-biter and came down to just pure team fighting in general. So I'm not too worried for H2K from some of the mistakes they showed. I think with time again, they'll be back on their top form. When we saw them coming into the split, we were like, man, this team looks so good. And I think they'll get back to that point. But they had a pretty decent week. I think even with yesterday's loss, I wouldn't be too worried for H2K.
No, they lost versus Vitality in the end, so yeah. OG, on the other hand, when we talk about teams like Fnatic, like OG, the ones that did so well at the World Championship, not a good week. One thing that we really looked at was Sven. He had the worst week actually since week 1 for him. 7 deaths in this week alone, when normally he averaged 2.7. But I feel like that's more a symptom. Of course, here we saw that victory where Soa stepped up on Fiora, but in general, the feeling with OG is still not there.
No, it's much like Fnatic. They came in very hit and miss. Origin, we didn't feel like had a whole lot of excuses, but they were talking, about lack of practice and whatever. But we keep hyping up Sven as like, this is the shining light on this team. And when he then underperforms like in a week like this, it looks very difficult for Origin the way they're playing, and they obviously had to rely on a good performance from Source yesterday. So he's also going to look back, I'm sure, at this week, and he's going to be super disappointed, Sven himself, and then try and fix it for next week.
Is it time to start talking about the mid lane? We talked a lot about it the first couple of weeks. Do you think at this point that a change would do something, or do they need to fix things that go bigger than that, and it would be no use of just putting on the Band-Aid?
It's a big question. I mean, we don't know if Peke is ready to step in, potentially, even if it was needed to actually fill the mid lane role. Let's say he was. I think Power Weevil is doing some good things, but then he's also doing some really bad things at the same time. Like, he's holding on to his flash a lot, a bit like your AD carry sometimes in the mid lane against hard engage. And I know he hates the question about his champion pool, but it's something when we are looking at it, like, he took 2 or 3 weeks longer to play Corki mid lane. We haven't seen, like, Gangplank mid lane for him. Nuclear plays a fantastic Gangplank. He's playing Corki. Like, how much freedom does it give you guys in pick and ban phase that he can pick all these champions and also, like, a zillion?
Yeah, I think it's really important. Like, not only in the top lane, actually, you can play a lot of champions. Mid is as well, like, very diverse. But I think for OG to change their mid lane right now, like, if they had to change, I think it would be the last moment, because playoff come quite soon, I would say. And if you, like, would be changing someone in week 8 or 9, then you will be, like, in a bad spot for playoff, I suppose.
I think they're going to keep him, and they should keep Power Weevil. Yeah. Keep working, because he might not have looked as good as he did last year just yet, but that's also because the team around him isn't working well. So I think it's more fix the entire team than in the individual players that you're like talking about benching him or anything. I don't think they're going to do that.
And I think one of the places he really struggles with is that team dynamic and who's carrying. We saw the article from Crepo earlier this week about gold resources and who's getting the amount of resources in the game, and it's Sven that's getting them on Origin. And, for Power of Evil to go from the Unicorns, where it was all about him last year, now to he has to play somewhat of a backseat role at times. I don't know whether it's just that he's not used to not getting the resources, or he's not comfortable playing on a style where the AD carry is the primary carry of a team. Something just isn't gelling, and for a couple of weeks we were like, yes, he's playing utility, that's fine, but we saw the Varus this week. He did an okay job. Origin did win that game, but it wasn't on his back. I don't feel like any of the wins that Origin have had have been because of Power of Evil.
Yeah, a team that we were also looking at the mid laner specifically to get out wins was Giants and Pepinero. And actually, he's had a really good week. I'd say probably his best week yet. Yeah,
and also why Giants look better. Almost won yesterday, took a win today. A lot of it is on Pepe, but one of the problems in Europe is if your best player is the mid laner, there tend to be 5, 6, 7 other mid laners who are equally as good or maybe even better. Because we are so stacked, like look at just the top teams. Rio is doing really well, Nuke Dog Perks, like these guys. They don't have any issues playing against Pepe. So he's not able to pull off these single victories against them. And it's more, again, on Giants then, to find other ways to win games. But today, and even yesterday, Pepe did have a good showing.
Yeah, and the Giants are booking a couple of wins, and QuickShot actually earlier caught up with Godfred for some insight into the mentality of Giants at this moment.
I can't ignore the fact that you guys lost the first 8 games of the split. It was a tough start to 2016. Give me some insight into why you guys were struggling to put results on the board, or why you were losing so many games.
It's kind of a hard question, you know. We're still trying to figure stuff out, to know what we do wrong and improve that. And especially if you go 0-8, you know, the mood is not the best and people are frustrated. You know, everyone wants to improve as much as possible. It's like, it's every component almost. We were kind of a new team. We didn't have like a personality as a team together, so we didn't really know how we should play to our strengths, what players are comfortable on. Like, we have players that haven't played LCS before and stuff like that. I think it takes time to ease into the kind of LCS, how you play on the stage. Like, everything is new. But it's a really hard question, as I said, so we're still trying to figure stuff out.
Well, it seems like you guys are making some improvements. 2 wins, obviously, you know, in consecutive weeks. Just one last question. Godfred, I'd like to know, earlier Adri had said that Giants as a team are now not looking to make playoffs. It's a difficult situation at 2-10. And he'd mentioned you're just looking to get as ready as you can for promo relegation. Is that something that you've talked about as a team, or is that something that Adri is thinking about, and it's kind of the, you know, the elephant in the room?
I don't think it's an elephant in the room, really. Like, everyone is aware of the fact that if we don't make playoffs, we will play the relegation tournament. And it's just a reality, you know. You have to be as good as possible. Like, we get the best training that we can get in the LCS against the best teams. So if we just keep improving and like play as a team and just work ourselves up, I think we should be fine in the relegation tournament.
Well, best of luck for that one, and best of luck for the rest of the split.
Well then, summarizing what he said, we feel like we still have to ease into everything. A lot of changes were made, and yes, we get a lot of practice now against top teams. This is an organization that's now been in the LCS for a longer time, and 2 years running, and made playoffs. What do you take away from that? Is that enough, Stress?
The thing I take away from everything about Giants is that they're running out of so much time. There's so little time left before the actual promotions, and they're talking about how they're not too sure exactly where their problems are, of where they've got to fix them. It's at this point that support staff is critical. Whether it's analysts, coaches, everything behind the scenes, you've got to find out the way you want to play the game, the way that works to play the game for your team right now. Because if you don't, there are challenger teams that are looking pretty good. That, you know, the likes of Millennium, apart from this week, we've seen Inspire having a game plan coming into games, and they can take down teams potentially that don't have any kind of set plan. If they're just kind of going into a game being like, we don't know what our look and feel for team is, it's potential they can lose that spot.
Yeah, I think it's very concerning when a team in week 6 now, coming into week 7, are still saying we don't really know what the issues are. Because you now had so many weeks, so many games to look back at. And I feel like when you're struggling like week 1 and week 2, it's okay. And you want to get a bit of time to improve some of these things. But like, yeah, time is running out. You can no longer say we don't know what to fix. By now you should say, oh, our shot calling is bad. Or maybe our pick and ban phase is wrong. And like, that's what we need to work on. And that's concerning to me, that it's still, what exactly do we need to work on?
For you guys, you also, I think it was Kasing that said we are getting better, and you guys didn't get off to a fantastic start all the way in week 1. In week 2, you were still rolling. How does that process go? Is it together with your coaching staff, it says, okay, this, and this has to change? Or how does that work?
Yeah, pretty much. I think like early weeks, we had either games that were winning but not clean. Like Origin games, we win because like Shook makes a good play or something, but that's not really a win because like, sure, at the end of the day, you got the win, but what's important is becoming good and be able to do it over and over again. So like lately, let's say last 2 weeks, we're just playing more clean games. So it's about like mainly rotationing properly and be able to like play lane swap really well, I suppose.
Yeah, and you have a 4-0 in the last 2 weeks. Enough questions for us. We also asked the people to send in questions for you, Cabochard. And here's one from @PerksLol. How would you rate yourself amongst other 80 carries in Europe?
So I think I can't be the very best because I have a bit of forgiven syndrome playing only a few champs. But otherwise, I think I'm good AD carry in Europe, yeah.
Top 3?
Top 3 indeed.
Okay.
I mean, it's also interesting that you can play AD carries top lane now. I feel like this is a good year for you meta-wise. You can basically do all the things and enable your team to do things. Okay, you had to play Lulu today, but how do you feel in the meta at the moment?
Yeah, the meta is pretty cool. Like, even though if we're seeing more tanks come back, then like I actually feel like, compared to the Maokai meta when it was really good, that you have a way to play against it and to pressure somewhat.
Here's some highlights.
We've seen your Graves quite a few times,
Yep.
which has been pretty badass. What do you like about Graves so much?
I actually love the rework on Graves. I think the shotgun mechanic, like being able to, if you're melee range, like closer or not closer, is like not understood by everyone, and then some people are gonna come that close to you, or you're gonna come close to them and like kill them basically.
Yeah.
The damage is really insane on that champion, and you just build AD, so.
And the smoke screen. So secret OP. Not really secret.
Game-winning smoke screen.
Not really secret OP. Another question from @Hancax asks, what is the most efficient champion for split pushing top lane?
Maokai.
So, you wanna go on Maokai?
Oh, sorry,
or?
I'm not Cabochard.
Okay, sure.
You go.
I think like the best are gonna be something like Fiora first, because it's just like, well, it's called the duelist for a reason, and once you're gonna like have some items, you're just gonna be able to win basically every 1v1. If you fall a bit behind and maybe build some QSS, it can be annoying, but the champion scales really well, and you can team fight if you build Titanic, or just split push if you build Revenue Sidram. Then you can split push with AD carries like Graves or Lucian, pressuring the tower really hard. And like you just have to manage properly the pressure. Like when your team is gonna pressure and you have the vision enemies, let's say you're 1v1, then you can pressure. Then someone's gonna come to you. You tell your team to play 4v3, etc. So it's a process you have to learn and experiment. And then you kind of can split push with tanks, building Zizirot and stuff, but it's lame.
Lame. That's not the Cabochard style. What's an underrated split pusher for solo queue for everyone out there?
Lucian.
Lucian? Okay, wow, we're going to see Lucian top lane split pusher.
I thought we were getting like Tryndamere there or something like that.
But he's not underrated, right? Everyone likes Tryndamere.
Hey, you don't see it in the LCS? No.
Yeah. What about the Vayne top? What is it?
Vayne top, is that a thing for the AD carry main?
It's coming, yeah.
It's coming.
Wow.
Okay.
Spoilers.
Exclusive
Shots
preview.
ahead of the curve.
Amazing.
As
Yeah,
well. Like,
obviously.
wow.
Not because it was played before. You talk about being behind. We have here a question from @Mr. Nano says, if you're behind in the top lane, what do you do to come back and help your team?
So once again, it's going to depend on the champion you play. If you play a Malphite or something, it's mostly fine to fall behind, and you're going to either try to scale or try to help your other lane. With you can play the other way around as well. Let's say the Malphite wants to TP to your bot lane. You tell them to play properly around it. Like they're just gonna maybe engage. The enemy's gonna be like, okay, they're engaging on us. We have TP advantage. Malphite TP's in. You back off, and if Graves, like, you basically 3-shot the tower. So you can abuse very like hard if the enemy misplays and pressure very hard.
I thought we ran you to the tweets, and I thought you were gonna say I never fall behind. Then, but
Damn, he got off script here.
yeah, he went off the script.
Bad.
That's not allowed.
No,
We're
that's
gonna
not-
have to throw it
Please,
over to
read this here.
QuickShot.
Read this.
Yeah.
I never fall behind.
Good. There we go. There we go.